Analyzation of the news. And the first one that the staff here, someone from the audience here in the studio requested that all this had to do with more or less the same thing, which I'm sure all of you know what that is. What? As the family strove to become even more civilized, the father so instructed them all. Never spit in the garbage. Least anyone want to wait too long for a widespread analyzation of that. Could we reflect it back to you and ask yourself, how would you describe, how would you draw some picture of humanity, just ordinary people, no offense to them, just ordinary people, attempting to be even more ordinary, I mean civilized. Ordinary people attempting to improve their position in life. Think about it. No offense to ordinary people, but they're attempting to do better, attempting to bring themselves up to ever higher plateaus of meaninglessness, attempting to, in some way, bring out the greater hues and colors of beige. Attempting in some way to be able to highlight their intellectual middle-classness. How would you go about it? How would you describe it? I, for one, since you asked me, I find this to be exemplary. Don't spit in the garbage. That would be, without any doubt, a step up for many people, if not some others. If you recall, I don't know whether this one was requested, but it had to do with people by the figurative name of Bubba and Edna May, who live in the trailer parks, deep within the bowels of us one and all. They're the ones who at times do not like to be included in certain observations. Which ones might that be? Almost any observation. Who wants to be a poster boy to be hung up somewhat as a mirror and say, would you like to be like this? Because everyone can, in the privacy of your own home, you don't have to have it done to you publicly. Edna, Bubba, everyone can go home and in private look in their own mirror and say, is this what you want to be? And of course the answer is, well, no. But there's no sense. You missed it. There's no need to bring it out in public. See, it's only ordinary. It's only be politicians, priests, rabbis, social commentators, people in advertising, the ordinary spokespersons, the mouthpieces for life that will make you feel what? You remember the other definition of being civilized, a test you can give yourself. If you're truly civilized, all you got to do, just ask yourself, do you in any way feel guilty just for being alive? Right in the garbage. So anyone who's ordinary does not want to hear themselves used as an example. That is about, there's a news item in there somewhere. People will stand for almost anything verbally to be talked about. One example being the old joke of people in showbiz or in the public eyes, I don't care what they say about me as long as they spell my name correctly. That is about a fact, and you don't really have to be pseudo-famous. It's just ordinary people. You can just be standing around, and if suddenly at a party and you're bored, nothing going on, and suddenly you hear your name mentioned over there, a crowd of people, you know, maybe you won't leave after all. You're about to set your drink down and walk out and think, boy, you know, what a nothing party. But hey, they're talking about me, so they can't be absolute Clydes. I mean, the people have got to have some, at least, emotional joie de vivre. I mean, if they're excited enough, you know, to recognize that I'm a fit, if not entertaining, subject for conversation, then you don't really care much what people say about you. About the one example, the one exception is, people don't want to be used for an example. This is getting off, as I said, that was actually another news item. But people do not want to hear themselves used for an example. Not if the example begins to resemble in any way a mirror. They don't mind being bad-mouthed, as long as you got their name right. And plus, they can bad-mouth you at a party, and you're, you know, like a man, you can think, well, even if they bad-mouth them bad, that if there's no woman, you know, likes, you know. some crude dunderhead like me. It's probably good advertising. People will take being talked about in almost any manner other than anything approaching the objective. Even though we can, with some validity, say that the objective does not exist within the partisan world of the ordinary intellect, it cannot. But in any way that men seem to be discussing other men, if you hear yourself discussing, it seems to be sans passion. Somebody's describing you almost clinically. And you keep listening to hear at least if they'll do something like, ugh, if you can hear that in their voice. But somebody just described you like you're a fly, like you're something that's been dissected. That is when Bubba and Edna and Albert Einstein and other semi-famous people get very close to feeling that they've been thwarted. I thought it was worth a shot. They have been abused. And they don't know why. But if you know how to do it, I don't know why you'd want to, but you can you could dig up Gandhi and make him fighting mad to start describing him in a way that sounded as though it was just clinical. That you just absolutely had no interest one way or the other, that you knew who he was and all that, but you just described the person as a nothing. Not negative, but you just described him in just absolutely impassionate terms, and he couldn't hear any of it. That can make a pacifist want to whip your ass. People cannot abide that. I might point out, it's off the subject, is why certain kinds of news items, newscasts, are so ragingly popular throughout history. Yeah, I heard some of that, but I don't know. Something's wrong with that. I don't like that. And they keep waiting. Wait a minute. When am I going to be able to take this personally? Because if you can take it personally, like, well, wait a minute, now you're attacking me. You're attacking people like whoever you thought you were if you're ordinary. People who live in trailer parks. Decent people with good trailers, tied down good, and skirts under them. Now, as long as you feel as though that there is some passion behind the observations being made, then you're in a partisan game. Then you're in the ordinary contest, the struggle of humanity, because then you can bob and weave, you can resist, you can counterattack. But somebody starts describing and you hear yourself talked about, and it sounds as though they're actually talking about a frog that somebody has cut up, and they've got no particular interest in, they're just describing you. That can give the most intellectual of people a severe case of the RA. And that has nothing to do with Irish politics, by the way. There were a whole lot of items having to do tonight, as I said, the same thing, all of you know it, about being civilized and serious. One of them was a question time. How can you spot a civilized intellectual in a crowd of happy people? Civilized intellectual tonight was used several times, and I assume you can put together the conditional, the civilized intellectual. That is a different kind of intellectual. That's like a partisan thinker. That's like the ordinary run of the intellect, but it can, without any doubt, denote someone who is educated. It's not just someone whose intellect is alive and that their brain is breathing and blood gets to it. This got started tonight, evidently, a file that was referred to as the serious, not serious files. You can see how it's going to go if there's any more articles. It's like this. One thing that's serious and then something that may or may not seem related that's not serious. The serious, not serious files, like two columns. Fleas are not serious. Flea spray is. Sometime after that, they didn't pull it out, but there was a variation of it, for those of you that want it crude. And it said that illness, not serious, treatments, serious. See, fleas in this sense, if we may be figurative, allegorical, are literal in a way that makes no sense. It's your call. I mean, you're the audience. Pick anyone you want. I will not, God forbid, take it personally. Why should I take it personally? I'm just analyzing this. It's not like I wrote the damn things or made it up. Fleas are not serious. Flea spray is. Taken at a quite basic level, you could say, well, from a dog. From the dog level in you, from the animal level in you. You could say, well, that's not true. Fleas are serious. Come on, give yourself a break. Ease up. You could say fleas are serious. Yeah, fleas are serious in the sense, are you alive? Yes. Do you ever have aches and pains? Well, certainly. Fleas. Only someone inordinately, supremely, done beyond the call of duty, can continue to take fleas seriously. I mean, you got a toothache, you got an earache, you got a headache. I mean, it's just preparation for dying. It's just a warm-up. I mean, well, there's no doubt we'll all agree that a good toothache or a paper cut inside your ear, and I'm not going into how that can happen, can be serious, can hurt, but to call it serious, you understand, you have got to stretch the personal boundaries of how hard up you are for a hobby, which is very common. We've been through several news items in the past. Illness or health, I guess most people would like that better. Health, look what a hobby health is to ordinary people. Look how much of the news, look how much TV, radio, newspapers, they have whole segments which we're sort of emulating. See, I didn't say satirizing. On our news show here, we say things like, now from our health watch, or now from our health desk, medical news. But well, you all know that. Just flip on your TV, and they spend large segments of the news and in periodicals, print media, on health. And as you all know, unless you don't listen to you or your kinfolks, that is a great hobby with people, talking about their health. Consider what kind of hobby that is. For one thing, it is an absolute finite hobby based upon the fact that you're going to die. I mean, it's not like trying to collect a stamp, an example of one stamp of every stamp ever made. Now, there's a hobby for you, because there's no end to that. They're going to keep making stamps even after you're, bye-bye. But you can't ever get them all, or collect every CD ever made by James Brown. You can't collect anything. Any hobby is endless if it's part of what man has invented, if it's part of the culture, if it's part of anything, any of the arts. It is limitless as long as we have man. But if there is a dead end, from one view, if there is an absolute, I don't guess we should say useless hobby, because many people enjoy it, but finite is really covers it. I mean, you've got a hobby that going into it, is not going anywhere. I mean, it's not like, well, perhaps I'll end up at the age of 60 or 70. I might have, if I really apply myself, I could have the Western world's, if not the world's, greatest stamp collection. I mean, it's possible. It's something to shoot for. But if health is your hobby, there's nothing to shoot for. I mean, you're already dead. You just hadn't fallen down. It's not that the end is near. The end is here. It's not near. It's just you hadn't laid down yet. So back to the news item itself. Fleas are not serious. Flea spray is. All right, now beyond death, how about all of the things that plague man's soul, not his body, but all of these complaints that humanity has? How you're mistreated, how you're not appreciated, how you're not famous, how loved ones. I was just reflecting back on that news item from last time that many of you liked. It was the history of human literature as per poetry regarding emotions. You recall that one? Romantic poetry was, I loved you, You stepped on my dick. Metaphysical poetry, life stepped on my dick. And then reflective psychological poetry. I guess I stepped on my own dick. All right. The reason. The real reason I brought it back up was to have to do with this news item. Because if you feel as though fleas, that is ordinary life, which is, if you want an analyzation, you don't have to have it, but the reason you laugh at all that is taking fleas seriously, because everything I just mentioned. If you've ever been in love, because there was another news item that they didn't ask me and nobody requested to be analyzed a few nights ago, also was like a serious, non-serious list. And that was that lust is serious, romance is funny. Or, to bring it up to this new kind of list, romance is not. Everything, that little history of human verse, human literature as reflected in verses having to do with emotions. Why you're laughing at that was all of it is about areas that are not truly serious, because, back to what it was, if you've ever been in love, to take the romantic, the first one, if you've ever been in love, then what do they call it? You've been hurt. So there you are. One down. We got that covered. Metaphysical. The history of metaphysical poetry. It said, life stepped on my dick. All right, if you are inclined at all, which we'll assume almost everyone who is literate and listening to this might be, could be, then in some way you have waxed philosophical sometime in your life. That is, you have been, at least in passing, you've attempted metaphysical reflection. Like, what's the meaning of life? Why do I try to do good and I still get misused and etc.? There it is. Same way, if you've ever been alive, if you've ever been in love, you've been hurt. Thank you, Merle. I like to give credit where it's due. It was actually Hank Sr., but it wasn't that Greek guy. At any rate. So if you've ever been in love, you've been hurt. Second part, the metaphysical poetry. If you've ever been alive, you've been hurt. The third part is really a little more up-to-date psychological poetry. It's thinking, well, yeah, I have felt hurt. And in the past, I blamed it on other people, like my love life. Then I tried to blame it on life itself. But Jesus, hell, I've done read 4 or 5 books on psychology. I better wise up. I should come, get into the modern day. It's got to be my fault. Oh, well, I got to go. There is the history, but there is the hobby. Do you see what I was trying to get you to consider? This list of serious, not serious, to say that fleas are not serious. Pick out one of those, what you consider to be the most serious thing can happen to a person this side of death, rather than just have to just stay with that, of being hurt, being misused, having other people mistreat you, cheat you, loved ones, family, your priest, your rabbi, anybody. What does that connote? I didn't mean to bring up Italian food. To what does that point? What is that telling one? What is that stating? It is stating that whoever said that is alive or has been. Showed serious signs look similar to an alive person. That's what it says. Back to the serious, not serious file. But not, remember now, we're not talking physical. I've tried to move it over for you. There would appear to be emotional, intellectual. Everyone has fleas. Forget just the physical side now. That was easy enough to start with. That you know you're going to die and you have headaches and etc. But then there appears to be the area that humanity still believes that is at least, all right, untoward. To have certain psychological ills. People will accept, you can get people to accept the fact, whether I tried to make it sound funny or not to start with, that, all right, to be alive, you're going to ache and hurt. Especially if somebody gets past the 20s or 30s, they'll go, well, you're right, I'm beginning to ache, and I guess you're right, you finally just kind of wear out. You'll agree to it. But if you start saying, well, wait a minute, can you take that beyond the physical level? I mean, sure, they'll agree that I hurt. But to say, well, why do you think that's any more serious? Why do you find that to be any more problematic, if not questionable, than it does to be alive and have headaches? And as they should, ordinary people go, oh, no, you have changed the subject completely. You have gone far beyond any ability to compare the two. Because having a headache, having aches and pains is normal. That happens, you can't avoid it, they would say. They'll agree. And they'll say, but do you know the way my first wife treated me, my second husband? Do you know the way that my father mistreated me? That is not normal. Boy, that's a hard one. That's not normal. Because then you can't carry it any further with ordinary people, because by that time they are deadly serious. You can't say something like, well, what planet are you from? They don't find that funny. That's not funny. My father was a drunk. My father was a drunk and beat me. I gave my first husband the best years of my life, and then he ran off with a girl who sold cotton candy at a carnival or something. And you say, was the circus in a spaceship when it came through? And they say, that's not funny. I was trying to, open up my heart. I was trying to, what ordinary people, I was trying to share my feelings with you. I can see into your heart, and it looks like some kind of B-grade science fiction movie creature. That's not funny, is it? Well, why are you laughing? Fleas are not serious. Flea spray is. Consider, since we're running out of time tonight, I assume that you're up to date, that all of the so-called ills, all of the afflictions, all of the side effects of being alive, we'll make a blank there, and you put in anything you want to. All the way from bunions and pulled muscles to pulled emotions to strained relations. You fill it in. That's fleas. Those are not serious. Here's what's serious to a few people is attempting to treat the damn things, which is exactly what ordinary people are supposed to do, because then the hobby does not seem to be as self-limiting and is immediately subject to termination, or at least fulfillment, because as long as you say, well, my life is not, my relationships, my personal life is not, I must admit, heaven on earth. It has not been absolutely fulfilling. I have been mistreated. I have probably mistreated others. Guilt, a little bit. So I guess I should try and work on it. Ordinary people. What is more civilized than to be in, by God, perhaps by now, a 14-step program? To be in analysis, to be attempting to go back to your forefathers' religion, attempting to just be a better person, to treat your fleas, even though you are not responsible, obviously, for them. I loved you and you gave me fleas. I'm doing a redo of the history. Life gave me fleas. Well, I probably deserve it and gave them to myself. Do you understand, with ordinary people, attempting to do better helps fulfill the hobby, because you're not going to do better, you're going to die. Back to the physical level. That's like, well, let's be healthy. I will spend my time in the gym, I will run, I will change my cholesterol. Fine, that's a great hobby. I assume all these people do know you're going to die. Yeah, you're supposed to point that out. Well, you can point it out, but still the attitude, as it's supposed to be, is, well, that should not stop someone from trying to be healthier. Of course, you can't carry that much further. You just have to stop, because then you say, yeah, well, it'd be nice to really work on it and be healthy right up, yes. Well, right up, to the moment you die. You just can't think about that. Not that there's anything wrong with exercise or being healthy, but to think, well, there is something to strive for. That just right before you die, go, God, I feel good. Well, you understand, the real part of that is you should know you're dying. I don't mean you just did it and then accidentally died. It's some way you know you're about to die, but you just before you go, they tell you, somebody says you got 30 seconds before you die, and you go, God, do I feel good. And if you're really ordinary and civilized and a good gregarious person, is hopefully have some friends and neighbors with you that go, you do, we've never seen you look better. And then go, well, that's why I was saying you can't really care that much further about how good it is to exercise and be in good health and bring down your cholesterol and whatever all else the newest health fads are. Get plenty of beta carotene. I'd rather die than eat rutabagas. But even though that seems easy enough to chuckle at, now consider, though, away from the physical level into the psychological. That is, attempting to do better in life, attempting to improve yourself, to improve your mind, improve your talent, improve your relationships with people, etc., to psychologically be healthier. Now that, you can't even get ordinary people, you can't get to the point of chuckling to say, wait a minute. Why are you going to try to make yourself better? Because you could almost get ordinary people to laugh if you did it in a good-natured way, what I just did about exercising and getting yourself in good shape and bring your cholesterol down, and then suddenly when you're at the height of getting yourself in better health, you die. And people kind of go nervously, ordinary people kind of chuckle along. But then if you try to point it, because that's almost ironic, and ordinary people love irony, which we've been into why already. But if you tried to get it, we're completely out? Okay. We're completely gone. How about roll a little bit more? It was about how easy it is to describe a physical hero, the strong, silent type, whereas you can't do it intellectually, because conversely, to describe and make it appear to be a hero intellectually, there's got to be a man that engages almost in, is there such a thing as excessive palaver? What I was trying to get you to consider, as slippery as it is ordinary people cannot see, to say there's nothing funny about pointing out you're going to die. And even if you get out and spend a lot of money and sweat and give up all the good stuff, cigars and booze and cholesterol and fatty stuff, get yourself in good health, and then you're still going to die. And you can make people go, huh. But then you try to say yes, but then psychologically, that is non-physically, whatever they want to call it, religiously, it's the same thing. That is not, to say it's not funny doesn't even begin to get it. People just, that's damn near offensive. What are you getting at? They don't know what to do with it. The mind does not want to work that way, because you can't think. Civilization would close down. The collective reality of humanity would cease to move if everyone, in some way, not that I'm correct or not that they should, but if all of humanity went, wait a minute. No matter what I do psychologically, no matter how I improve myself, no matter how much more education I get, no matter how I improve my social position, I'm still going to fucking die out there, and might as well be in Potter's Field. I'm going to die and smell and stink as bad as I would have if I had stayed in the trailer park, stayed married to Edna, never gone back and got my grade school diploma, never got a decent job. I'd still die. That is not funny. And to say it's not funny, one more time, doesn't cover it. I don't know how else to, well, you can figure it out. It just, how about doesn't compute? But notice, it's the same thing as the physical death. It's the same thing that I pointed out, and I'm sure you can see it, not because I say so, but you can get ordinary people to laugh about physical death. And you can get them to laugh even on the basis of being a little more specific, as I was being, of pointing out, well, isn't it ironic? Isn't it good for a laugh to think about people out there right now? Look out there. There goes a guy running. 10 o'clock at night, it's raining, and he's out there running. And notice, even while he's running, every now and then he's trying to check his phone. And we find out the guy is cut down on all kinds of foods they used to enjoy. And his wife is haranguing him about, got to lower your, whatever it is. He's going to all this trouble. And it can be proven. There are enough statistics, if you got to go with that. He can do all of that. And if he was just leading a fairly ordinary life to begin with, I don't mean that he was smoking 5 packs a day and drinking 2 quarts of Jack Daniels. But if he was just ordinary, he can go to all this trouble. And what's it going to do? I don't know the statistics. What? Put 30 or 40 days extra on his life? That's after getting up every morning at the age of 35 when first time his heart went, or his wife says, by God, you're getting to be a tubby little bastard. And he goes, well. So he starts getting up at 5 in the morning. He gives up ice cream. He quits smoking. He quits drinking. He does all this. It's all right. It's a hobby is what I want you to consider. It's not attacking it. But what's it going to do? He's still going to die. And not just still going to die. This is not going to make any, as we like to say in the trailer park business, it's not going to make any constructive difference. I don't want any attorneys to write me that may live in trailer parks and say, you stole that terminology from our esteemed profession. You shouldn't be living in a trailer park, sir. It will not make any difference. 30 or 40 days, what's going to put on your life? And you could, if you wanted to really be silly and ironic, you could say, well, that is not much of a trade. That the man gave up. He started getting up for the last 20 years of his life. He got up an hour and a half earlier than he wanted to. Nothing in his body wanted to get up every morning at 5:15 and go run 3 miles. Nothing in his body said, boy, do we hate ice cream. Boy, I'm so glad that you quit eating cheese and pizzas. There's nothing in the man's body that said that. Again, assuming that he was just in ordinary shape to start with. I don't mean that he was in such bad condition with something he had apparently done that he could stop. But if he was just fairly ordinary to start with. You can get a man to nervously engage in the kind of laughter to point out just what I've done. Again, that you can do all of that and ha, you're still going to die and it's not going to make that much difference. And people will go, but then say, well, wait a minute. You can go back to temple, to church, to religion. You can go back, you can start going into analysis. You can start reading books. You can start trying to improve yourself. Forget physically. You can do that too. But to try real self-improvement where it counts. Same thing. That's when people, if you just try to do it in a fairly objective way, they won't get mad, but they can't, it's not even funny. And I don't mean it's offensive. It's not that they don't want to laugh. They don't know what to do with it. And why? Because they're not supposed to. It would be suicidal. You understand? You could make somebody, I don't know why you'd want to, but you could get an ordinary person to agree that trying to improve yourself physically, if you were just fairly ordinary to start with, that it's more or less a waste of time. It may be a decent hobby and you may feel better to lose 10 pounds. You may feel that you can strut a little more. It might make you feel good if a man started working out in the gym and he felt like, he put some muscle on and his posture, he may feel better. But you can get an ordinary man to agree that all of that is not really going to make much. The difference it's going to make in your lifespan and what life amounts to perhaps a minuscule pile of duck shit. See, and they'll go, ha, 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 ha. Try pulling that same kind of thing, talking about, well, now trying to improve yourself in other ways. In human ways, psychological ways, cultural ways, religious ways, intellectual ways. And they go, yes. And you try to go, same thing? You see the connection? No. No, you're trying to get smart? I mean, what you got against the religion? Nothing, I just wonder if you saw the connection. Well, did somebody tell you that I was back in school at night trying to get my MBA? Is there something funny? I'm trying to improve life for my children. What's funny about that? Well, there's nothing funny, sir. I just asked, can you see that there's a certain kind of parallel? You laughed of us, when I pointed out about working out and running and giving up good foods and you'll still die. And you go, yeah, that was. Well, there is a certain parallel between that and trying to improve yourself non-physically. You are trying to get smart. There's nothing funny there. It's not funny or not funny. It just simply does not compute. It is suicidal. But now, if you're attempting to understand, just to put it roughly, just between us, get some idea of what's going on in life based upon information not currently is all the time available, then you got to see that being alive is not serious. It's not an ill. But trying to treat it, that is. That'll make you sick. Well, what does that mean? It'll keep you normal. trying to get out of here. I still wish we could dig up Joel Chandler Harris and whip the shit out of him or sue him, because there was the origins. Don't ask me how it worked out that he didn't write this till 100 years ago, but somewhere life got into a black hole, because that's the origin of the stories of a tar baby, the stories. Yes, I'll whip up on myself. I'll improve myself in life and do what? Make myself much worse. Now, of course, I'm just saying it between us, because that's not the way that it comes out in ordinary intelligence. You mean trying to improve myself makes me worse? Yes. And of course, that's not true with ordinary people. But it is. And that's the name of the word, make it worse. That's one of the news item I thought you might like. Fleas are not serious. Flea spray is. Yes, I'm a terrible person. I'm ordinary. I think I'll try and treat my ordinariness and bring it up to a higher standard. That's serious. That's dumb. That's dangerous. Because what are you going to do, even if you succeed? I'm going to bring my level of ordinariness up to a higher level of ordinariness. I will be bezier than ever. In that sense, if you're sick to start with and you're an ordinary person, and if you're an ordinary person, you believe you're sick. And not just physically. Remember, that was one of the tests for being civilized. Being ordinary and sane is what? Do you feel just somehow sort of guilty for being alive? Yeah. Forget why. Don't tell me now that metaphysically, romantically, psychologically, you feel guilty for being alive. Yeah. You're supposed to try and treat that. That'll help keep you alive for 60 or 7 years up here. At least alive enough that you can say your name and take a driver's license test, be retested, or say, give me a sandwich. Yes, no, trump the heat, change the channel when you're up, something. You can stay that much intellectually alive. But if you try to treat it, let's call that being alive and being ill, just between you and I. You're dissatisfied with it. Everybody is, but if you're dissatisfied with it and like to actually do something about it, then you got to look at that. Let's just use a term that look at that as being an ill, not physical, but an ill. If you try to cure that, the only thing you're going to do is make it worse. From this kind of unusual view, you're certainly not going to stop it. It is like scratching a rash. You can say, well, it makes me feel better. But my God, if you look down, some of the rash that started out, years ago, was a spot on the back of your hand. And now all you got left is half of an Achilles heel that's untouched. The rest of you, you don't have a rash. You is a rash. Yeah, but I'm my own rash. Yeah. I'm my rash, and I don't take no shit off nobody. Ain't nobody going to tell me I'm a rash. This ain't funny, I know. Fleas are not serious. Flea spray is. Fleas are not dumb. Trying to get rid of them is dumb. You can't get rid of being alive. You can't get rid of being ordinary. There is no cure for it. But believing there is, or at least believing there's a reasonable treatment, is the only thing that makes ordinary people find life at all tolerable for 60 or 70 years. So, well, Jesus, things could have been better. Maybe I didn't give it a big enough shot. Maybe I should have gone and got my doctors, not just my masters. Maybe I should have stayed with my third wife, or I should have stayed on that first job. But the feeling is, fleas could have been treated. That there is. Maybe I didn't do it correctly. Maybe I left the church at the wrong time. Maybe I left home at the wrong time. Maybe I should have stayed in an analysis another 10 years. But the belief is that there are sprays that would be reasonably expected to treat fleas. Maybe I didn't go about it right. Maybe circumstances did not lend themselves to me pursuing that kind of treatment for a long enough period in the right way. But it was available. There's no treatment for being alive at the ordinary level. The only treatment for being alive at the ordinary level is don't be fucking ordinary. Which is not serious, by the way. It is not a spray. It's not a treatment for what's wrong with you now, because, I hate to say it, but there's nothing wrong with you now. Oh, you just don't know. Who said that? That was dangerously close. Who said that? We're still rolling. I just wanted to hire folks out there, since I don't look at the camera anymore, to all you people out in, what's that damn long state out there, that California, and the great Pacific Northwest. Plus, what did you people ever do with Pete Seeger? Plus, I guess some of you up in that area think, just because I mentioned that, you think that we've forgotten Woody Guthrie. I still want to know what happened to him. And then Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and New York, and Miami, and Arizona, and anybody else that's listening. I didn't authorize anyone from Nebraska to see this part. If we get any cards or anything from Nebraska, you put their name down that list I gave you, the one that's right next to the lighter fluid.